Good morning, a good Erev Shabbos. Today we're learning the second Perek of Maaser Sheni. Today's shir is sponsored Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachum and Simcha Kohen, Yeshua Mercha Ben Shevsel, Bracha Sarah B'Shmuel Lib, B'Yam Moshe Ben Yosef, Made in the Shemas all have an Aliyah. Mishnah Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph starts off Maaser Sheni Nitan L'Achila. We're going to talk about the ways that Maaser Sheni may be used in Yerushalayim. Maaser Sheni is allowed to be used in any of the of three ways: the achila for eating, or the shtia and for drinking, or the sicha and for rubbing on one's skin. Le'echel davar shedak le'echel. We are to eat only what is normal to be eaten. Therefore, if Maaser Sheni's produce spoils, does not need to be eaten because spoiled food is not normally eaten. Lasuch davar shedak lasuch. We are to rub only with what is normal to rub. Lo yasuch yayin v'chametz. And therefore a person may not rub his skin with wine or vinegar of Maaser Sheni because these are typically used for eating and drinking and not for rubbing. Aval sachu is a shemen, but he may rub his skin with oil, which is typically used for that purpose. Ein mefatmin shemen Maaser Sheni, one may not perfume oil of Maaser Sheni by soaking spices in it, because the spices absorb some of the oil, and since the spices are eventually removed from the oil and thrown away, Maaser Sheni oil absorbed and then will go to waste. We had a similar concept discussed in Trumas and Meisters as well. Ve'ein lochin b'demei Maaser Sheni shemen mefutam. In addition, one may not buy spiced oil with Maaser Sheni money. The spiced oil is used only by people with very refined tastes, and only types of food used by the average person may be bought with Maaser Sheni money. However, one may add spices to Maaser Sheni wine, because even though spices absorb some wine, the spices are consumed together with the wine, and thus no wine will go to waste. If honey or spices fell into Maaser Sheni wine, and as a result, the mixture went up in value, because the spiced wine is worth more than the value of the ingredients of their own. Hashevach the added value is calculated by proportion, um, and um, and meaning that, say for example, if honey worth one seller fell into Maaser Sheni wine which is worth 2 slime, and the mixture is now worth 4 slime. So 1 plus 2, in this case, equals 4. Okay, so if the owner wants to redeem the wine, he must redeem it for 2 2/3 slime. Why? Because since the wine accounted for 2/3 of the mixture's value, and the value of the mixture rose by 1 seller, he must add 2/3 of a seller to the original wine's value. Okay. Dagim shenisbashlu im hakaflutus Maaser Sheni ve'ishpichu. Similarly, if fish, which was chulin, were cooked with Maaser Sheni leeks, and the resulting mixture went up in value, hashevach lefi cheshbon, and the added value is calculated by proportion, as we discussed in the previous case. Isa shel Maaser Sheni shafa ve'ishpicha. If someone baked the dough of Maaser Sheni ingredients and its value went up, the bread is worth more than the raw dough is worth. Hashevach l'sheni, the extra value is all added to the Maaser Sheni. So this is the rule. In any case where the chulin item that causes the value added is recognizable, then they can measure the mixture and see that it contains chulin ingredients. Hashevach lefi cheshbon, and the added value is calculated by proportion. But in any case where the chulin item that causes the added value is not recognizable, and you cannot tell by measuring the dish that contains chulin, hashevach l'sheni, and the extra value is all added to the maaser sheni, and therefore, when the firewood causes dough to increase in value, the extra value is all added to the dough because the firewood cannot be detected in the dough. Mishnah Beis. Rabbi Shimon says, Ein sachin shemesh maaser sheni b'Yerushalayim. We may not rub with maaser sheni oil in Yerushalayim. Rather, maaser sheni produce may only be eaten or drunk. Chachamim matirim, but the Chachamim permit rubbing with maaser sheni oil. Amar lo Rabbi Shimon, the Chachamim said to Rabbi Shimon, Im heikel b'truma chamura. If we are lenient concerning truma, meaning that we allow a person to rub truma oil on his skin, truma is more chamer than maaser sheni. Even though truma generally has stricter laws than that of maaser sheni, lo nakel b'maaser sheni hakel. Should we not be lenient regarding maaser sheni and allowed to use for rubbing, since maaser sheni generally has more lenient laws? If you could rub the truma oil, the kohen can, on the skin, then certainly you could rub maaser sheni on your skin as well. Amar lahem, Rabbi Shimon said to the Chachamim, Ma'alo, what? That's not a good argument. Im heikel b'truma chamura. Well, here we are lenient when it comes to truma, although truma generally has strict laws. Makom shehakel b'charshinim of a sultan. We are also lenient with truma in other cases, such as in the case of vetch and fenugreek. Regarding those laws, they're treated more leniently, which we're going to learn in the next two Mishnahs. Nakel b'maaser sheni hakel, should we be lenient about maaser sheni? It's because it is usually more lenient than truma. Malcolm shelo hakel b'karshinim of when there are cases where we are not lenient with maaser sheni, since such as in the case of vetch and fenugreek, meaning even though truma's laws are stricter than those of maaser sheni in many ways, there are some laws especially regarding vetch and fenugreek, for which truma's laws are more lenient. Therefore, the fact that it's permitted to rub with truma oil is no reason to say that you be permitted to rub with maaser sheni oil. There's could be another way where it's more chomer than truma, and that's okay. That's according to Rabbi Shimon. Mishnah Gimel. Let's talk about the vetch now. Okay. How is it? How are vetch and fenugreek more lenient by truma than they are by maaser sheni? So, totan shemaaser sheni te'achot simchunin. Fenugreek or maaser sheni must be eaten when its stalks are young and moist. When fenugreek ripens further, its stalks turn hard and inedible. Since it's forbidden to cause maaser sheni to go to waste, the person must eat his fenugreek stalks before they become inedible. Fenugreek that is truma, though, may be kept until it hardens. So once fenugreek, what's the difference between truma and maaser sheni regarding fenugreek? Once fenugreek dies, it's fit only for animal feed. Since maaser sheni may not be fed to animals, fenugreek that is maaser sheni will have no use after it dries. However, fenugreek that is truma may be fed to animals, because the kohen can feed a dog fenugreek that's truma, or whatever that's truma. So therefore, it can be kept until it dries, because it can then be fed to animals. It will not go to waste. Most tumah may not be fed to animals, but fenugreek is an exception. Um, okay, let's go on. Bishal Truma, with regard to fenugreek of Truma, Beishamai says, Kol Maaseh B'Tahara, everything that is done to prepare it must be done in a state of tahara. Person must wash his hands before touching, just as must wash his hands before touching other produce that is Truma. Chutz chafifisa, chafifasa. An exception to this rule is shampooing with fenugreek Truma. A person may use Truma fenugreek to clean his hair without washing his hands, because once it's used as shampoo, it's no longer edible, and there is no concern that a non-Kohen will eat it. But Hillel says, everything that is done to Truma fenugreek may be done in a state of tumah. They did not. The Chachamim did not require a person to wash his hands before touching fenugreek that is truma. Chutz mishviyasa, unless he is soaking it. If a person soaks such fenugreek, he must wash his hands first, because soaking fenugreek with unwashed hands causes two things at once. It prepares the fenugreek to become tummy by making it wet, and it makes it tummy by being in contact with unwashed hands. The Chachamim answered this as a reminder that it is truma. Mishnah Dalet. Kashine Maaser Sheni Yo some tzimchunim. The vetch that is Maaser Sheni must be eaten when its stalks are young and moist. So like fenugreek, vetch turns hard and inedible as it ripens. Since it's forbidden to have Maaser Sheni to go to waste, the person must eat it before it becomes inedible. But vetch that is truma can be kept until it hardens, because then it's also good for the animals. Okay. And Maaser Sheni vetch may be brought into Yerushalayim and then taken out of the city. In contrast to other Maaser Sheni, produce may never be taken out of Yerushalayim once it's brought in, only vetch and possibly fenugreek. Nitma'u, if Maaser Sheni vetch became tamei, every tarfon says that it may not be redeemed. Rather, yischalku le'istos, it should be divided into small portions, which should be mixed together with larger tohar Maaser Sheni doughs, so that in each dough, the small amount of vetch will be nullified by the larger amount of tahara Maaser Sheni. The Chachamim say yiftu, that the vetch may be redeemed, just as with any Maaser Sheni that becomes tamei. Vishal truma, regarding vetch that is truma, Bishamai says so. Shorin shafin b'tahara, when we soak such vetch or rub it on the skin, we may do so in a state of tahara, that a person may wash his hands before touching it, just as for ordinary truma. But when we feed vetch to animals, we may do so in a state of tumah, that means that one does not have to wash his hands first. Because even though vetch does not have the same chumras as ordinary truma, Chazal, Chachamim decreed that when a person uses it for himself, he may not touch it with unwashed hands, so that people will remember that it's truma, and no non-Kohen will eat it. Beis Hillel says, Shorim b'tahara, when we soak vetch, our hands must be tahar, shafin, u'machilim b'tumah, but we may rub vetch on the skin or feed it to an animal in a state of tumah. Shammai says that a person may handle vetch with unwashed hands, but the vetch should be fed to animals only when it is dry. Kiva says, anything that is done with vetch may be done when a person is tamei. The Chachamim made no decrees requiring a person to wash his hands before handling vetch. Ma'os Mishnah Hey. Ma'os chulin u'ma'os mashasheni shenis pazru. Chulin coins and similar looking mashasheni coins were scattered, and now we cannot tell which coins are which. If someone picks up the coins one by one, mashtalika, leakate, mashasheni. Whichever coins he picked up first, he picked up from mashasheni. I mean, the first coins that he collects are treated as mashasheni coins, until he finishes collecting the number of coins that belong to mashasheni, and the rest of the coins are then treated as chulin. In Bala v'chafan, however, if the coins fell in a jumble and he scooped up a handful at a time rather than one by one, the handful of coins are treated by proportion. So meaning that if 2/3 of the coins were mashasheni, 1/3 was chulin, then that's what happens over here now. So Aklav is the rule. Hamis locked him the mashasheni. When coins are picked up one by one, the first ones collected are all from mashasheni. And when coins are jumbled together and picked up by the handful, they are treated by proportion. Mishnah Vav. Sela Shamashasheni Vishel Chulin Arvu. If a silver seller of Mashasheni and a silver seller of Chulin became mixed up, the owner can do the following. Maybe Beselamos, he brings a seller's worth of copper coins, but Omer Seller Shamashasheni Bechol Makum Shehi, and says the seller of Mashasheni, wherever it is, Mechuleles Alamal Ha'elu, should have its sanctity transferred to these copper coins. That way, the copper coins take on the mashasheni sanctity, and both seller coins become chulin. And he then chooses the nicer of the seller coins, and transfers the sanctity from the copper coins to the nicer seller. As a result, the nicer seller is mashasheni, and the other seller and the copper coins are chulin. He must transfer the kedusha back to a silver coin because the Chachamim said that the mechal and kesef out of the choshes medochik. We may transfer kedusha from silver coins to copper coins only when we are forced to do so, but not otherwise, because it is degrading to mashasheni to transfer sanctity from the silver to the less valuable copper. Below she is kaim kain, but even when a person is forced to transfer the silver to copper, it should not stay that way. Rather, he must transfer the kedusha from the copper coins back onto silver. Mishnah Zayin. Beishamai says, Lo yas adam es lav din rezahav. A person may not exchange his silver seller coins a mashasheni for gold dinars. If his mashasheni was silver coins, he may not transfer sanctity onto gold ones. If a person was allowed to do so, then he might delay going to Yerushalayim until he has enough mashasheni to fill a gold coin. The Beis Hillel material, the Beis Hillel permit transfer mashasheni from silver to gold. Rabbi Akiva says, Aniya Sisi Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua es Kaspan Din Rezav. I personally changed the silver Maaser Sheni coins of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua for gold dinars as per Beis Hillel's ruling. The Mishnah Ches. We got 3 more to go. Ches Tes and Yud. Hang in there. Someone who wants to exchange many copper coins of mashasheni for a silver seller coin. Beis Hillel Amim, Beis Shammai says, Kol hasela maos, he may exchange all the copper coins, the value of an entire seller for a silver seller. Beis Hillel Amim, but Beis Hillel says, shekel kesef, shekel maos, he may exchange half of the copper coins for the value of a shekel, for a silver shekel, but the other half of the copper coins, which are worth a shekel, must be kept as copper coins. Um, uh, okay, so what? We have to keep half copper and half silver. Well, because when he comes to Shalim, he's gonna have to break the silver down to copper in order to spend it. Um, and then it's gonna cost more for the exchange rate over there. Like if you walk around town with like $100 bills, eventually, they want to buy a piece of pizza. You're gonna have to break that 100 into, you know, five tens, and 20s. So you need smaller currency as well. If Rabbi Meir says, "Ein mechalin kesef v'peirus al hakesef." We may not transfer kedusha from Maaser Sheni money and Maaser Sheni produce together to the same coin. You need to have one coin for the money, one coin for the produce. The Chachamim Matirim, but the Chachamim said that's okay. Mishnah Tess, Porate seller Shemash Sheni Yerushalayim, someone who exchanges a silver seller coin of Maaser Sheni for copper coins in Yerushalayim. Beishamai Omen, Beishamai say, Kol HaSeller Maos, he may exchange the whole seller for copper coins. Beis Omen, Beis say, Shekel Kesef, Shekel Maos, he must take change for one shekel's worth in silver coins, and he may take change for the other shekel's worth in copper coins. He may not exchange the entire sum for copper coins because we are concerned that he will not end up spending all the coins on food, but will save some for the next time he comes to Yerushalayim. And since copper coins corrode over time and lose their value, they may be worth less by the next time he returns to Yerushalayim, which would be a loss of Maaser Sheni money. Hadanim lifnei chachamim amrim. Those who debate before the chachamim say, "B'shlosha din rekesef." He must take change with 3 dinars worth, which is 3/4 of a selah in silver coins. The dinar mouse, and he may take change for 1 dinar's worth in copper coins, which is 1/4 of a selah. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva says, "Shlosha dinarin kesef." He must take change for 3 dinars worth in silver coins. And out of the 4th dinar's worth of the seller, he may take change for Urevius Maos, and you can take change for 1/4 of it in copper coins, but you must take change the rest of it in silver coins. In other words, you may exchange only 1/4 of a dinar for copper coins. Instead of 1/4 of a seller, he says 1/4 of a dinar, which is 1/16 of the seller. Rabbi Tarfon says you must take change for 3 dinars worth of the seller in silver coins, and out of the 4th dinar. Arba aspire kesef. So out of the 4th dinar, he must take 4 aspers worth, which is 4/5 of a dinar in silver coins. You may exchange only 1 asper's worth, which is 1/20th of the original seller, for copper coins. And Shammai Omer, Shammai says he may not exchange silver for copper coins at all. Rather, he deposits the silver seller in a store with the storekeeper, and over time, he takes and eats food from the store that's equal to the value of his seller. And finally, Mr. Yud, Misha Hayu Mixus Banov Tamayim Mixus and Tahorim. Someone has some children who are tame, and some children who are tame, and some children who are tahar. He wants to buy a pitcher of wine with Maaser Sheni money for his family to share. Meniach as a seller, Omer, you can put down a seller of Maaser Sheni and say, Ma shehatahorim shoshim seller zu mechalelas olav. This seller shall have its sanctity transferred to the wine that the Torah children will drink. I mean, this declaration takes effect that whatever wine that the tahara children will drink will be Maaser Sheni, and the rest of the wine will be chulin and may be drunk by the tumah children. Nimsu taharim v'tameim shosim mikad echad. Then it turns out that the tahara children and the tumah children drink from the same pitcher. That is the end of Perek Beis. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful Shabbos, and we'll see you again on Sunday morning for Perek Gimel of Maaser Sheni. Have a great